And let's move on again, and if we can quickly also deal with this matter, and then I would want us to zero in on what I may find to be the two most topical issues that we may need to spend about an hour each on. Let's first see if we can deal briefly with the matter of the breaking news that came yesterday of the arrest, house arrest of COP Patrick Timbala, who has also been interdicted over the police recruitment scam. Now, the police recruitment scam, as you're aware, started about 2 weeks ago. We heard that some individuals numbering about 200 or more had paid, various sums of money ranging between 4,000 and 5,000 to particular individuals who also, some have been arrested, and they claim that they took those monies on behalf of the police administration. And those people whose monies were taken were giving letters that they had been approved to come and train as police officers. So they went to the various regional headquarters, getting ready, for the process, training schools, getting ready for the process, only to be told that they have been scammed. We got to know that after Patrick Timbala himself had, held a press conference, we got to be told about 5 persons who had been arrested. There were, let me just indicate them to you. There were these individuals that had been arrested. There was this gentleman by name Richard Harrison, who is 30 years, said to have lured others who paid over 4,000 cedis each to him. There was a pastor by name Paul Danso, who was also arrested. There was also the commandant of the police college, is it? Bright Odro. And then we were told of this woman by name Aisha Asumda. There was someone who was arrested in Takoradi, is it? A police officer there. So that is in Koforidua rather. There was Constable Ruth Ejiri, who is 27, of the Central Police Station in Koforidua, was arrested, and Corporal Gideon Sapong also was mentioned as a suspect. Then there was a radio presenter of Silver Radio, Amos Brown, 40 years, was also picked up. And just yesterday we were told that Patrick Timbala, who is in charge of human resource, was also placed under house arrest, yes, under house arrest, and has been interdicted. Let's listen to the Reverend Amper Benning of the Police Public Affairs Directorate, who broke the news yesterday to Joy News.
Yes, Commissioner of Police, Mr. Patrick Edin Timbala, who is also the Director General in charge of Human Resource Development, the Ghana Police Service, upon the recommendation of the Special Task Force set up by the Police Administration, has been interdicted and also been placed under house arrest. It will be recalled that a Special Task Force was put in place by the Police Administration, and it presented its interim report, which in spheres implicated the Commissioner. Interdiction was recommended by the Special Task Force investigating the recent recruitment scam, which has generated a lot of discussion on various media platforms earlier this week. We have taken this action to enable the task force, the investigative, to have full access to the Commissioner, and then for investigations to continue.
DCOP Patrick Timbala is a Director General of Police Human Resource Development, correct?
Yes, please.
Okay. And what this decision taking means what exactly for him? He's been placed on a house arrest.
It's on interdiction.
Okay.
When you are on interdiction, you are not supposed to come to office. It's so that you can cooperate fully with the investigating team. And as and when we have enough evidence, we will update the press of the ongoing exercise.
And the house arrest also specifically means what exactly?
It's not supposed to appear in public. He must stay in his house. It's not to be seen outside, and that is it. Because he's a very senior officer, and we are conducting this investigation. Please take him.
Okay. And this week, when the press conference was held by your good self, it was said that some of the recruitment forms that the people who were hoping to get into service showed had a signature on it. Some said that signature was forged. Was that signature that of DCOP Patrick Timbala, allegedly?
His name was there. There was a signature under. The task force is investigating. Maybe it may need some forensic auditing, checking, but he's denying that is not his signature. And there's also the committee investigating team. So it's, I mean, true, one against each other. But I believe that the investigation, they know what to do. They will subject it to some forensic auditing and find out whether it is his actual signature. But for the time being, the investigating team, they have come up with some recommendations, and they are convinced that his presence may interfere in the investigations.
So you just heard Director General in charge of Public Affairs at the Police Service, DCOP David Ampebening, announcing to Evans Mensah in that breaking story about the house arrest and interdiction of Patrick Timbala, who is in charge of human resource and is the one who is being linked to this. Now, if we can clear a few things, Honorable Iko too. He's been placed under house arrest. How do you understand that?
Well, he tried to explain that he's a senior police officer. They don't want him to be seen in public while this investigation continues. They don't want him to interfere with their investigations. I don't think it's quite a common practice in constitutional regimes to hear that people have been put under house arrest. You know, usually you arrest them, take them to the police station, let them write their statements, you grant them bail, and then they go home. But this idea of house arrest is worrying a little. It looks a little bit odd for me because it's not a court order, you know, and he's not supposed to be in police custody, but rather in his own home on the house arrest. These are things that are more associated with military coups. You know, people come. They come without any laws. And they
you have an Attorney General, you can tell us whether there is any law or policy in Ghana regulating any such, you know.
Yeah, I'm not too sure.
Like
I'm not too sure. That's why I'm raising these issues. I'm not too sure. Ordinarily, if an individual is involved in the criminal investigations, you arrest him, bring him to the police station, let him write a statement, you grant him bail, and he goes home. This idea of putting somebody under house arrest, I'm not too sure that I've come across any law. The Constitution also does not. It talks about custody, you know, and we know custody is either prison or police custody. I'm not too sure of the house custody thing, house arrest, but these are common things associated with coup d'etats.
All right, so but briefly on the substantive issue itself, what do you make of it? Some say we should look beyond just tagging a few people as the ones who may have been behind it.
No, the whole thing is worrying. I mean, if you want to do recruitment, why? You should have a budget for it. You should know that we need so many new recruits into our system. The police service itself should meet. The police council should decide how many people we want, young officers as against senior officers and all that. And you do it professionally. I mean, it looks so plural. You got a whole a director in charge of human resources involved, that is signed some letters fake. I mean, where are you going to put these people if indeed it's not a proper recruitment of the police? Then nobody seems to know them. The whole thing is a scam, fraud, And I doubt whether this gentleman is involved. If indeed, I mean, they are saying that the signatures are there, which is prima facie evidence that, look, you signed something for some people saying that they have been recruited. And we, the police service, we are not aware of this kind of recruitment. So we need to do more investigations in depth, into this matter. But it's so worrying that people could also just get on board and accept this kind of thing, because I thought that from experience, these things are placed in the public domain. They are advertised. They have forms. If you need to go and buy forms, they show you where to go and buy forms, and then they'll do it throughout the country. Today we'll be in the northern region, the other time we'll be there, and you come with your certificates and all that, we take your measurements. And how come that this kind of recruitment went on and nobody saw it? You are saying that no policeman saw it. So what kind of intelligence service do we have? Because the security agencies must be called to book. Where were they when these things were going on? Because the people must have to bring in their certificates. They've got to gather at one point. Their eyes are taken. All kinds of questions are asked before they are cleared. Don't they go through, don't they write exams? Apart from even interviews and all that. So how come that at the end of the day we're told that these people have actually been taken, only for the police service to say that we don't know anything about it? Well, somebody was sleeping.
Dr. Pence, what do you make of it? What do you make of the whole thing?
Well, I mean, it's a matter of surprise in a certain sense. I mean, here we have a man of the law saying that not too sure about the regime under which it is possible to effect house arrest. That's very interesting. Maybe it would be useful for the police administration to regularize things as soon as they can. Otherwise, it gives the impression that one set of rules for big men and another set of rules for others.
As we know, the other officers who were indicted or implicated were arrested.
Yes, on the other hand, I can understand how the police administration may be worried about the prospect of a senior police officer perhaps being behind, being locked up with persons who may have an axe to grind, okay? And so, yes, so that his own personal safety may be at question. But the bigger issue really is that there's a process of investigation underway. For me, any time we have a situation where you have due process, I am gladdened. I know the fact that the president was making a point that when you have a situation where there are more exposures, okay, the narrative then becomes that there's more corruption. I don't think there's a lot more corruption now than there has been in the past. One. To my own assessment would be that corruption is the single biggest activity in our political economy. And by corruption, I take the simple definition of corruption as being the abuse of power. It happens at all levels, in every sector. In this particular case, it has to do with people looking for jobs. Okay? And a casual observation will tell us that there are hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of youth looking for work. Okay? Another observation will tell us that there are dozens, if not hundreds, of tasks that need to be accomplished. This is a very strange political economy we are running. We have hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of youth unemployed. Okay? And the evidence is that people are willing to pay to get employed. Okay? Often for some, that it will take them quite a while to recoup. Okay. So the name of the game is the abuse of power. It happens at all levels, at the petty level, what you might call retail. It happens at the grand scale, gross corruption, or what you might call wholesale. Okay. Because corruption is necessarily a shadow of power. Wherever power is exercised, corruption is always in the shadow. It always lurks. And the only way you can get rid of the shadow is that you have light all around, you have transparency. But then we have to raise this matter. This one, it's the instance we're talking about is recruitment into the police service.
Right.
Okay. But I'm saying that there are hundreds of tasks, social tasks, that needs to be accomplished.
That's the irony.
Okay? In crying need of being done. And there are thousands of idle hands. Hundreds of thousands. The problem is the model of political economy we have chosen, which is at the heart of why we are not making the kind of advancements and getting to the point about the statement that Nkrumah made to Parliament, that political independence has no meaning if it does not lead to an improvement in our material lives. And how do we get to that? It appears that we will only address our problems if a few among us can profit wildly from it. So, cooperative solutions, collective solutions, they don't exist. Recently, I was trying to work on a certain project. I went to talk to the people at the cooperatives. The law that governs the cooperative dates back to the 66 coup. Okay? It was horrible. I hear government program after government program talking about developing entrepreneurship. No one is talking about collective solutions. Solutions that work for everybody. It is clear that the only solutions that we want are the solutions that brings profit for a few people. That is not the way forward. And for me, those are the key issues. Okay. But as for the investigation, I'm sure it will go forward. I'm happy, like I said, anytime you have a due process underway, okay, you should tell everybody that, look, you cannot hide in your corner and carry on with business as usual, okay? If it comes up, it ought to be investigated, and persons who are found culpable ought to be punished. And that is the best deterrent, okay, beyond just opening things up.
All right.
So we can get things working.
Right. Dr. Park, there are those who say they are least surprised about this because, look, it goes on anyway, not only in the police administration, in the various departments of state. People find ways of using the back door, take monies from people to fix them, to try and fix them, you know, in the system.
Well, that is exactly one of the fundamental challenges that we face as a people and as a nation. And whilst it is indeed the case that we have heard some of these stories, as you've said, and sometimes they have been collaborated, other times it has been very difficult to prove them, I think that what has happened in a very strange way to the very entity, if you like, the institution of state, which is mandated to ensure that these kinds of things don't happen, presents this issue in a much more poignant way, to the extent that we can no longer deny that these things are going on. So whilst we await the investigation, as indicated by the police administration, I think we must also commend the police council and the IGP for moving very swiftly to try and get to the bottom of this issue. Look, let's put it bluntly. It was a great embarrassment. There is no reason why any of us should say otherwise. What happened, and the fact that this could have gone on across the country for people to move with bag and baggage to police training schools, expecting to commence training, was an embarrassment, to say the least, and has serious security implications. And that is why I think that, you know, the investigation has to be thorough, and those who are found culpable must be severely sanctioned, and it must be made clear, as the President has said time and again, that we have a collective responsibility to make sure that we bring forward any information that can lead to the uncovering of acts of fraud, malfeasance, or acts of corruption against the state. If we are going to improve our systems, if we are going to improve the systems to work and function in a way that would allow us to truly enjoy the equality and fairness that we've been promised under the 1992 Constitution, we must also play our role. But I find it very interesting that if you look at those who have been arrested so far, quite clearly the COP has indicated his innocence, and he has even challenged the report that you played. He's even challenged the veracity of his signature, whether it can be proven. But if you look at some of the other persons who have been picked up, other police officers, a radio presenter, and a pastor, for God's sake, what does that tell you? It tells you that, as we have been saying time and again, that when we talk about fraud and we talk about malfeasance and we talk about conspiracies to dupe the state and the good people of this country, it is not limited to only one category of people belonging to one profession. So it is not just political appointees or politicians. And so I see this as a wake-up call, and it is my hope, and I have no reason to doubt, that we are going to get to the bottom of this matter, and that all of the other reports of fraud that we've had, because, I mean, you are right, we've had this to do with passports, we've had this to do with visa applications, we have had this to do with gold transactions, we've had this to do with immigration recruitment, fire service recruitment, civil service recruitment, even teacher training recruitment. So clearly, what this means is that we must pay more attention, and that government must do a lot more to encourage citizens to come forward. Because
Dr. Kwesianin, who is with the Kofi Annan Center, says that, he says, and I read, he says, let me explain. Over the past decade, there have been disturbing instances in cases in which officers of all ranks have been complicit in all kinds of malfeasance, including this particular type of malfeasance. He suggests that there ought to be a bipartisan parliamentary investigation into this situation. Do you subscribe to that?
Well, I don't oppose that, because Parliament is the People's Assembly, and I believe that there should be an appropriate committee in Parliament which is even expected to look at the functionality of our security agencies and services. But be as it may, I think that it will be proper for us as a people to allow the work that has been commenced, you know, to go on, because, you know, the story just broke, arrests have been made, investigations are still ongoing. I mean, Parliament can decide to look into this matter if and when it chooses. I mean, I have somebody who is a former Attorney General here. He can say I'm wrong if I am, but I don't think that there can be a time limit about when Parliament can look into this issue. My fear is that if that was to be done immediately, quite clearly it could have implications and may even compromise the ongoing investigation. But I just wanted to add that it is because of some of these occurrences, the fact that our systems are still growing and have not reached the stage where they themselves can do the introspection, you know, the house cleaning, internal cleaning, to rid themselves of these types of issues, is why the President chose to establish a desk at the Office of the President, inviting citizens who have information about all kinds of activities in as far as they are detrimental to the interests of the state, be it fraud, acts of corruption, or malfeasance, to bring forward that investigation. And that the information and the investigation will be triggered from the office of the president. So it is not as though the president or government is not unaware of these issues.
Okay. Now, to put it rightly, Dr. Kwesienin is asking for the president to set up a bipartisan committee of experts to go not only into this and also previous, claims that may have come up. And I can tell you in confidence.
Well, it's public now, so I don't know how confidential that can be.
Some of the police officers support an investigation that goes back because they appear to know that some of the previous heads of the entity have been engaged in this thing, but they blame it partially on politicians because the recruitment process has become such that politicians are able to infiltrate. And so people have to find other ways to bring, persons in. And by going through the back door to bring persons in, having become a tradition, now the officers try to exploit that process by asking the people to pay money. Kweku, what do you expect as we go on?
Well, let me deal with the proposal by Dr. Enin. I'm not too sure the precision. Bipartisan committee of experts.
Right.
The bipartisan creates a little confusion in my mind. Committee of experts. Bipartisan. Then we're talking somewhere, maybe Parliament. That's a different ball game. So I think there's a little confusion there. We need clarity. If you are talking of an independent commission of experts, that's different. Then you're not looking at political coloration of those who constitute the panel of investigations. I think that line, so that confuses me a bit. Unless he was talking of parliamentary committee, and so hoping that it will be bipartisan. But if you are focusing on just people with expertise for this work, then the word bipartisan, I think, is a bit
And that
confusing.
is why I made the comment that I made. And to be truthful, since you even indicated, just one second.
Sure, no
you
problem.
even indicated that there are officers who are seeking that if such a committee should be put in place, the investigation should go back. It would not be advisable to have this to do with politicians, because in your commentary you already indicted politicians as being part of the problem, which will support what
they
senior
wish for
colleagues
a
is saying.
commission, not a committee.
Yes,
Anyway, thanks for allowing me to stay a minute.
oh, no problem. Once the host allows it, then we all fall in line. But the point really is this: politicians who, and I'll be naive if I suggest for a moment that there isn't that kind of subculture, right from years back to today, if politicians do not try to place some people in the various security agencies or even institutions of state in terms of public operations and all the rest. It would be the height of naivety if I were to suggest that that does not happen or has never happened. But I still draw a line between that and this outright scam, this recruitment scam that we are dealing with, even though both may have its own negative implications for the quality of the service and the integrity of the service. But I think we should not confuse the two. This was a scam dead at birth, as far as I'm concerned. Look, there would have been a greater threat to security if this recruitment had resulted in enlistment. Then I would say the system would have been deemed collapsed at all, completely. At least it didn't materialize to that extent. It doesn't mean it's not a threat of a sort. It doesn't mean that it's not a problem. It is a problem. That if indeed evidence will point to the fact that some personnel in the police, particularly in the hierarchy, were part of this recruitment scam, integrity of the service, the professional ethics, everything come into play. So I'm not going to underestimate it. But I'm saying that if this massive recruitment scam had resulted in enlistment, then we were going to be in very serious trouble. That would have been greater threat to national security. Fortunately, it didn't happen. It's been busted. Out of it are these fallouts where investigations and things are going on. But you see, I'm very cautious And it is with the benefit of history, some hindsight. I know Timbala quite well. We've dealt on certain issues based on my job. You know, Bright Odro, I'm surprised. I didn't know. Apparently it's public. Yes, I'm really surprised. So that's human nature. You never can vouch for anybody at any time, 100%. But you see, why I'm cautious is this. We need to be careful not jumping to conclusions. Not too long ago, this great police guy, my friend.
Bright Odro is the one leading this investigation. Yes, he's the one leading the investigation.
That's right. Because I got the impression as if he's one of those who had been arrested, based on what you said earlier.
I mentioned his name to actually add to 6. Sorry. He's the one leading the investigation.
That's right. That's right. I know him quite well. It would have been a shocker for me. No, but whatever it is, thank God for that. But the point I'm making, you see, we've had some instances, very classic ones. You remember the Kofi Boakye case?
Right.
We were dealing with drugs too, to the extent that even a committee of inquiry, a ministerial committee of inquiry, indicted him and recommended his prosecution. You know what happened subsequently at the Tagore appeal? Justice Apau.
Right.
His comments on the Kofi Boakye role. I don't know whether you read the judgment. I have a copy here. Virtually exonerated the police officer. We are now still tackling this Tehoda case.
Yes, Gifty Tehoda.
She's fighting her case like nobody knows how. You know, it's still in court, so there's no an end effect there. Then you remember there were 2 police officers. I think the names were then ACP Patrick Ampewa, and then Superintendent Edward Tabiri. The same cocaine case. The other one, the East Legon one, they were implicated by the lady. What's her name? Asibri or Grace Asibi. I think the committee exonerated them based on the allegations the lady made. Before the exoneration, before Kofi Boakye's problem, you know, Kofi Boakye was taken through a police inquiry, investigations, indeed indicted by the inquiry. Before then, the Kufuor administration asked him to go on leave indefinitely. Of course, Mr. Kufuor revoked that eventually before he left office. But he went through police inquiry investigations from 2009 to about 10, and the reports were not favorable. Then, if you recall the Frimpong case, Roko Frimpong case, a senior military officer was alleged to have recruited those young the military boys to assassinate him, if you recall. A whole attorney general was in court of law in this country to tell the whole country that they have evidence to the effect that some politicians had recruited this senior military officer who in turn recruited these boys to assassinate Roko Frimpong, when indeed the police at that moment were themselves trying some people. So I have become a bit cautious when it comes to these things. The principle of the investigation is non-negotiable, and we all ought to support it. But I think we have to be very careful drawing conclusions at this material moment, because there's enough history, enough precedent to show that such classic cases have occurred and have not resulted in what we were all made to think had happened.
Okay. Thank you very much. And then let me end with the 2 of you briefly. The suggestion is that if the police is investigating itself in this matter, this is going to be self-serving. You cannot trust the process. And again, since you cannot trust that process, it is the reason you need a bipartisan, like we could say, that's a bit of a problem, but that's why you need a committee of experts. And I'm saying there are those within the service who believe that there ought to be rather a commission set up by the president with powers to subpoena people. If it is being done by the police, there are officers who may have some information but will be unwilling or will be afraid to go forward, because if they do, they may be victimized, they may be endangered in the process. Dr. Percy, how do you look at that? Should we have rather a committee of experts or a commission to investigate this matter, going beyond just this particular one. And people are mentioning fire service, they are mentioning the military, and there are people who are recounting personal experiences. I have a colleague journalist who feigned interest and was asked to pay 7,000 to
I
get
thought
enlisted.
that this kind of thing belongs in the territory of IOCO. Okay. And I don't see the need for any quote-unquote bipartisan whatever it is. I think that this falls within the purview of IOCO. But one can go beyond that and go for a commission of inquiry to look at this, I mean, in terms of its systemic character, because clearly, this, I made a point earlier that this is just the tip of the iceberg, so to speak. Not saying anything about the individuals who are involved or who are being alleged to have involved, just that there's such a huge demand. It's a huge sea of youth looking for jobs, people looking for jobs. Very few public service jobs going.
Okay.
So you can take it as a rule of thumb that it does not matter what is being sought, whether it's dog catcher or border patrol. You'd have a lot of people. There are people who would like to equalize or to get a leg up, okay, by so that there's also a demand, but there's also a lot of push, okay. So I'm saying that in the end, this instance of corruption, like all other instances of corruption, is a symptom of a problem which we are not dealing with. And I am interested always in dealing not with the symptoms, but with the root causes.
Okay. With the root causes, do you sort of support those who suggest that there's logic in saying no one or two group of police officers could have organized this, giving the people letters and expect them to show up at the training, you know, colleges or centers for recruitment without those at the very top being aware? Because anybody intending to scam you will not leave such, you know, traces.
Yes. I mean, I would go along with that. And I'm making the general point that all instances of corruption are public services, okay, are symptomatic of deeper issues that we are not addressing, okay. And of course, the corruption, I mean, when they come up, they grab the headlines. They keep you guys in business, okay? But they don't move us forward. Because you can be sure that there's another one rolling along on the conveyor belt. And very soon we'll forget about this. And we'll move on. And it's business as usual. And I say this when I mean, it's a very serious statement I make.
Yeah.
I think that corruption is the single biggest activity in our entire political economy.
Okay.
Okay. Now, how do we address it? First, you need standards of performance. And people must know that if I go to the passport office, I put in an application, I should get a passport in 2 weeks. And if not, I should be told why.
Right.
And the person who is processing must be able to report and account for his work as a basis for staying in the job. Okay?
Okay.
Now, all of these things we've allowed to decay. Okay? So we are busy. In fact, you can be in business forever, chasing the symptoms, chasing the results of this negligence. So I say, look, first, standards, why publicity, people know about it, openness, and regular periodic accountability.
Okay.
That is a way to deal with this and all other instances, because I'm sure you'll be coming up with the Auditor General.
Yes.
Yeah, it's something.
Yes. Okay. Now, Ms. Akwe, to also briefly look at it from this perspective that this particular top police officer is being indicted because the letters allegedly were signed by him. He's denying that that is his signature. The police officers say that those who are investigating say that they have received also text messages that correspondence between some of the people who fronted and this particular police officer, which show that will give them reason that he ought to be interdicted. I have also seen paying slips that those who were taking the money, they took in excess of, one person took in excess of 1 million plus Ghana cedis for the project after having taken the monies from people. And the amounts were paid into an account belonging to, allegedly, an account bearing the name Patrick Timbala. The other aspect which I wanted you to address directly is that you, the politicians, are also being indicted in the process. That you are the ones who have brought up all of this because you always want your people to have access. And then the police, by that, were trying to assist you. And now, when they do that, they ask the people to pay.
I don't agree that it is because some politicians have interest in this. Because if it's being done transparently, as my colleague on my left has said, whatever it is, we know a protocol list everywhere. I mean, these things do happen. If you are not a politician and you are not in a higher echelons, you will not understand. But we always have something we call protocol list. So these things do happen. But what we are talking about now is just a scam, a fraud, that the thing never happened, the police service never said it was going to do any recruitment. That is it. That is as far as I understand the issues. Is that not the issue? So it's not a case of politicians wanting anybody to be pushed where he ought not to be. And I think the critical questions we put to him as to whether it's a commission or the police itself should do the work is what we have to rather zoom in on. The police has integrity. It has somebody called an IGP who represents the institution. Their reputation is at stake. Can't they do the work they've been trained to investigate? There are people trained to do investigations. Can't they do it? I think they should be able to do it. That is one way. The other one is that commissions and committees of inquiries under the Constitution, the president can always set it up on any matter of public importance. So if it is recruitment to institutions, especially the armed forces generally, and we think that there is a problem there, almost every year it's happening, then why don't we go for a commission? Or if you like committee, if you look at the Constitution, they are the same. Okay. You know, and my other worry about this bipartisanship, don't forget that there are experts like Dr. Park and the rest who belong to a certain group. There are experts like some of us who also belong to a certain group.
That is why I said earlier that it wouldn't be a very prudent idea.
So when we talk of a bipartisan commission, you know, what he says is that let us see the people coming. So that they see Dr. Park, they see Aipo too. They know, yes, this is my party. But they are all experts in their fields.
Very interesting. I've got some comments that are coming from you. I'll read them. We take a quick break and we return to deal with ethnocentrism and religious intolerance. But I want to conclude on this note by referring to an interesting statement that most of you are appalled about the unequal treatment of the persons who have been indicted. I'm referring to the University of Ghana Law Journal, the 2005-2007 edition, an article written by Dr. Raymond Atuguba on democratization and the governance of the security sector in Ghana, the case of the Ghana Police Service. And he says something here, that the police are still used mainly for the protection of the political class. Most of the political class today have one or two, sometimes a whole platoon of policemen at their service, ministers of state and their deputies, the Speaker of Parliament, judges and other political appointees appropriate this disproportionate amount of public security at the expense of the citizenry, giving the resultant shortage of public security. The citizenry buy private security from private security companies if they are rich, or develop their own systems of private security provisioning if they are poor. This is what has led to the proliferation of neighborhood watch committee, land guards, and vigilante groups. The police is also still under strict political control and are at the beck and call of political authorities. Simon in Walwale says, Ghana can achieve the desired transformation not only through unity, but through government's commitment to fighting corruption, mismanagement, and profligacy. Sofo Yamusa in Kumbungu says, the fact that Ghana is not bedeviled with civil wars is worth celebrating. Beyond the celebration, our political leadership over the last decades have failed our beloved country, Ghana. We therefore have every reason to lament over the incompetence of our political leadership, more especially those at the helm of affairs today. Oliver Bamba in Salega writes, after 58 years, the nation is still going through the hard ways. Not that, that notwithstanding, that's what you wanted to say, we have gone through some massive transformation in areas of politics, social and economics, and we owe it a great duty to maintain our cultural identity and national unity. Akwesi Champong in Maryland, the USA says, the COP Patrick Timbala, I know, is smarter than the one we are discussing. We hope someone perching somewhere on the shoulders of power is not cleaning with a long political broom. We'll take a break here and I'll be right back to look at tribal hate and religious intolerance.
Long political broom.
I like that.